I'm Luke, CEO of Lojistic, and one of the opportunities that a lot of businesses who are shipping stuff have the opportunity to do to reduce their shipping costs is tactically approach service level optimization. And by that, I mean look at the services, next day services, second day services, 3-day services that you are using within your operation to get your packages to your customers, and ask yourself the question, what is the time in transit, and more specifically, what is the number of days in transit that these shipments require to get my customer their product, make them happy, and fulfill your obligations to that customer. What we find in the hundreds and hundreds of businesses that we work with and that we help on this front and other fronts is that many companies will use next day services, 2-day services, 3-day services offered by the carriers without considering some of the other alternatives, i.e. ground services that perhaps can guarantee the same number of days in transit, but at a much lesser cost. Just because the carrier has labeled or named a service level as a next day service does not mean that that is the only service that can get the package there in one day. So if you're looking at UPS and FedEx, typically you'll find that they have, or in fact you do find that they have 3 service levels within the next day category. You have an early AM, an AM, and then a PM time definite delivery time for each of those service levels. And ground will guarantee a next day by end of day. So if it's really important that a shipment arrive in the early AM, then perhaps you do need to pay the premium for that. If it does need to arrive in the AM before noon, perhaps you do need to pay the premium for that service. If it needs to arrive by 3 p.m. or 2 p.m., perhaps you do need to pay for that. But perhaps also there are shipments that are going via those next day services that would be totally fine to arrive by the end of tomorrow, and the customer would be completely satisfied. You, on the other hand, the operation or the business, wouldn't be paying a $30, $40, $50, whatever the cost is, $100 charge for an AM next day service, and otherwise could be paying a fraction of that by using their ground service. And obviously, or perhaps not obviously, all Zone 2 shipments are in fact guaranteed by both UPS and FedEx to be delivered next day with their ground service. So by methodically working through those next day service levels and looking at those shipments, asking how many, what is the true requirement for these shipments, looking at your 2-day services, and Zone 2 and 3 are guaranteed to arrive within 2 days, which sometimes means faster than 2 days, with a ground service. And then looking at your 3-day shipments, currently perhaps going by a carrier 3-day service, and deciding whether or not the ground service, which reaches Zone 2, 3, and 4 in 3 days, but obviously at a much lesser cost with a ground service. So it can be a tedious exercise sometimes to go through the data and do the analysis. There's lots of tools out there, lots of companies out there, Lojistic certainly being one, that can help work through an exercise like that. But depending upon what kind of service level utilization you have right now, and how heavy your current usage of air services is at present, the more you're currently using it, the more opportunity you may have to move some of those shipments to a ground service, get the package there just as quick, in some cases even quicker, and always at a lesser cost. First, it's problem identification. It's identifying those shipments that are currently tending to go via an air or an express service that otherwise could arrive in the same number of days or less using a ground service. So it's identifying the problem. And then the solution is building a process to make sure that in the future, those shipments are in fact utilizing a ground service when it guarantees the same number of days in transit. And that's first going to be building a process around that. And then usually the most effective way to manage that business process is not depending upon the people to remember to make the right choice, but rather leveraging software or shipping software. And there's lots of shipping software out there, both carrier provided as well as third-party software. Lojistic has a solution on that front as well, to make sure that the best decision, the low-cost decision that meets the time and transit requirement is being selected every time.